Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And back with some more headlines, some interesting information here, mainly focusing on Turkey and Israel. All right, and this is something to keep an eye on because similar to the precept in Jeremiah, I believe it's 49, right? We would always bring that out, linking how through the actions of Israel, they would trigger, this drawing in of the United States, and more nations into this world war. And likewise, when we read in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, right, which I'll get that in a second, in that prophecy, in that vision, right, of Russia being made ready for war and coming against Israel and the U.S. and so on. Turkey is mentioned as one of the nations, right? Obviously, the name Turkey is not mentioned in that sense, but the region in which Turkey is right now is mentioned as being a part of the coalition or the armies that would come on along with Russia, right? So knowing that, we know that as of right now, Turkey being a part of NATO, right, which is obviously the alliance here, but then again, Israel being a close quote unquote partner with the United States, should this come to the point where these two start going at it, as we're about to see how close they got to it, and they're really going at it on some level right now, but should this intensify? According to prophecy, we know that Turkey is going to be on the side of Russia. The U.S. is going to stick with Israel. Okay, so it's important to keep an eye on this because this could be what drives that rift or that division, right? That cause that leads to the effect of that vision in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, explaining why and how actually, Turkey ends up on that side. So it says Turkey and Israel on brink of military clash after Netanyahu ordered strikes on Syrian airbase. At a moment of the ongoing Iran conflict, Israel and Turkey are escalating their competing claims and rhetoric over Syria to the point that full-blown war is being threatened. And it's all a part of the lines being drawn, right? And the Lord is organizing and pushing the nations that are set to be on one side to that side and the rest onto the other. He's preparing. This is a part of the preparation of the nations for that war. NBC writes of the irony of two American regional allies on the brink. See? A pair of key American allies, an attack on a strategic military base, and an intense election campaign. The United States has been scrambling to de-escalate this week after Israel launched strikes that appeared aimed not just at the country's regional rivals, but at its voters. The day prior, Turkey issued another arrest warrant for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, citing the prior Israeli military crackdown on the Gaza aid flotilla last May. But the big issue, which could draw the two powers into a military confrontation, is the Israeli airstrikes on an airbase in northwest Syria early Tuesday. Israel had specifically framed the 8 strikes on the Abu al-Dahr airbase in northwest Idlib province as necessary to curtail Turkey's expanding military presence in Syria. Now, when you read in the book of Proverbs, the 21st chapter, it mentions that the heart of the king, the word heart doesn't mean the actual organ, it means the mind, right? Like when somebody says, I love you from the bottom of my heart, they don't mean their actual organ, because they can get a heart transplant and then their love for you can still be the same, even though that physical heart is not in their body, right? So that heart is referring to really their mind. That's where your emotions and all that stem from, your mind, right? So in that precept, when it says the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, meaning it's in the control. When something is in your hand, right? When they say, wait till I get my hands on you or I get my hand on it, you're saying that it's now under your control. So the heart or the mind of the king is in the control of the Lord or under the control of the Lord. And as rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So he guides the thoughts and intents of the mind. He shapes it like a path for a stream to follow. Like Bruce Lee said, you got to be like water, right? Water takes the shape of whatever it's put in. See, if it's in a glass, it'll look like a glass. A bottle will look like a bottle. A weirdly shaped bowl, it will look like that. So the minds of the king is like water, and the Lord controls it like a vessel in which he has that water in, right? Or a path for that water to flow through. And that is also, I quoted that to reference, why is it that Israel all of a sudden now has a problem with Turkey? That they're pushing. And amidst this Iran tensions and basically war talk everywhere, they're pushing more and more against an ally of their ally. Why is that? Is it just by coincidence? Is it just random? No. The Heavenly Father is moving the chess pieces on the board. Okay. So it says here, a statement indicated the following. Netanyahu's office claimed Israel and Syria had agreed to a status quo in security matters, while Damascus was on the verge of breaching by permitting Turkish troops to deploy at the air base near Aleppo. One glaring contradiction is that Israel seemed fine with the Turkish military occupation of northern Syria throughout nearly all of the prior proxy war against the Syrian government when Assad was in power. But now they have a problem with it, right? But now Turkey is cozying up to the new Shara Jalani regime, even reportedly sending anti-air defenses to central Syria. And only now is Israel vehemently objecting. And you know how they go, right? They're not afraid to start some shit. And that's because the Lord has set it up that way, because they play a major role in this escalation. But Israeli leadership responded, we conveyed that message, don't. Netanyahu told Israeli army radio, but quote unquote, but apparently they didn't hear it. So we made sure they understood it better. Oh man. South China Morning Post has pointed out that the region is just one jet shoot down away from a potential Turkey-Israel clash. Because Israel gave no advance notice, the sudden appearance of its fighter jets on Turkish air defense radars near the border could easily have triggered a clash, right? And the Lord is doing that on purpose, okay? For the past 2 years, Erdogan has been calling or condemning Netanyahu. So, it's no surprise, it's no secret that they don't like each other, okay? But it's now at the point, you see, it says Turkey is a powerful NATO ally, while Israel is Washington's closest partner in the Middle East. So according to prophecy, Turkey is going to have to leave NATO then, because if they're going to be on the side of Russia and NATO is against Russia, that's not going to work. That's not going to mix too well. But remember also, if Israel gets into a war or altercation with Turkey, that's going to have to draw in Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, because they signed a quote NATO-style treaty or alliance with Turkey just recently. Okay. It says U.S. diplomats are scrambling to contain the rhetoric and creeping escalation. But no matter what they do, it's gonna go the way the Lord has set it up to go. Okay. And that's pretty much that. Now, let me get that precept that I quoted earlier. This is Ezekiel 38. And I'm just going to start at verse 5, because the verses above are basically the Lord telling Ezekiel to prophesy against Russia, right? Now here they're referred to as Gog, but prophetically speaking, we know this is in reference to Russia, right? And how the Lord is gonna prepare them for war, right? In the last days, prepare them and turn them back and control them and set them up to play a major part in this third world war. And then from verse 5 onward, it starts to list the alliances, right? Their allies that they would come with. Persia being one of them, which is Iran. So it's no surprise that Russia supports Iran. Obviously, even in this conflict that's going on, Ethiopia and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the bands here are referring to their armies. The house of Togarma of the north quarters. And when you look at an old map for like today, if you look at a world map, you see Africa, right? You see North America, Central America, South America, Israel. All they're named on the map. If you look at an old map, the modern day names didn't exist on an old map, but you would see the locations of where Gomer was, right? The inhabitants of these individuals years and years and years and years ago, where they settled, and the land was named after them, right? And the Togarma, the North Quarters, it'll show you that region of Asia Minor or Turkey. Okay, so here it says that they and their armies, right, and all his bands and many people with thee, meaning they're going to be joined with Russia to come into this war against Israel. And obviously, Israel being joined at the hip with the U.S. means that they're going to be coming against the U.S. as well. So we know that according to prophecy, Russia will be on that side of Slovakia. Turkey will be on that side of Russia. Now, is it going to be through the provocation or some clash between them and Israel? Because there's two ways, right? One, they either get attracted to the side of Russia, or two, they get pushed so far away from the alliance with the U.S. that they end up on that side anyway. Regardless, it's about where they end up, right? The effect of the vision. And now we're starting to see, the last few causes that trigger and lead to this effect. So, the way the Lord works is at any point in time, right? Whenever he says it's go time, it goes. So that's why we got to be paying attention, monitoring, measuring the time, staying on our watchtower, because you never know when the Lord is going to say go. So you want to be ready. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Kodash. Until next time.